for being here.
Well, thank you, Alexandra.
So Dr. Gary D. Salier
Yes.
is a master transformational relationship coach who helps people rewrite the rules for love in their brains. This allows amazing shifts to happen in a very short period of time so that people can have the extraordinary relationships that they deserve. Dr. Gary offers a unique blend of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, with Bert Hellinger's family system approach and attachment theory into a total science of relationships. And as one client said, he resets your system for love in a science-based, heart-delivered manner. I will second that. Dr. Salier speaks to national audiences and is the creator of Safe to Love Again workshop and co-hosts the Extraordinary Couples Retreat and other Extraordinary Couples programs with his beloved partner, Dr. Diane Frost. And he's also the author of the forthcoming book, which I've had the pleasure and honor to read some of, and it is amazing. Safe to Love Again, How to Release the Pain of Past Relationships and Attract Your Soulmate. So it is an absolute joy to be with you here today. I think I had a vision for this about a year ago, so I'm very, very excited. Today we'll be discussing a little bit of your own journey into love and loving and why relationships became such a passion for you. What does it actually mean to rewrite the rules of love? And what you see as how to take relationships from mediocre to extraordinary. And then what we will discover is what your view of the brain is and really how the brain creates whether our relationships are successful or not. And also talk about how neuroscience and the latest breakthroughs in neuroscience applies to how to relate in our beloved relationships. So what I wanted to start with is a little bit about your personal journey. You heard a little bit of mine today. So what has you be doing this, being this? You know, what is your calling in with respect to relationships? What had you create this as your career?
Okay. Well, first I want to say thank you for having me here. You know, you're just such a wonderful soul. And it's, you know, really, I've always thought big things about you. And I'm just so happy to see this taking fruition. And it is a joy to get to know you. It really is. And thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Well, for me, it really comes down to, I grew up in one of those families where, well, I had a borderline mother. And I mean, real.
What does borderline mean?
Borderline means that when she would get angry, she would reach for knives.
That seems pretty over the line, not borderline.
It's a little over the line, yes. And she had a temper. She had a temper. You knew not to honk her off. That's one thing. Now, and I also came from a family where alcoholism was there for generations. I was the first person to graduate from high school in 7 generations. So I kind of broke the mold on that one. And when I was a senior in high school, in college, professor did this big personality test on me. And I walk into his office and he says, well, yeah, you've got a personality, you know, cracking jokes. But then he said, the one thing that worries me is you've got a 90% chance of having a divorce. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to do that. So I stayed a 5th year of college when I could have graduated to get a 3rd degree in marriage and family. And I said, okay, done with that. So imagine how shocked I was when 12 years later she says she wants a divorce.
Your first wife?
Yes. And then, so I do years of therapy. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not going to happen a second time. And it happens a second time.
Second marriage.
A second marriage falls apart. And the most embarrassing moment of my life was telling my son, who was a senior in high school, that his father was going to be twice divorced. And it felt like a complete and utter failure. Graduate professor, publications, a hollow mockery compared to that. And that was when I said, all this therapy, all these degrees, it didn't crack the code for me. And I said, if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to crack this code. Because this shouldn't have happened. And so that's really why I do what I'm doing. Because for the longest time, therapy wasn't working. It really wasn't changing the base thing.
What did they actually say? What's the percentage of success in couples therapy? Isn't it pretty low?
It was. Up until about 20 years ago, you had about an 18 to 24% chance if you went into couples therapy. 85% was the rate of really helping somebody in singles if you were doing individual. And that's because everybody approached couples the way you do individuals. But couples have this thing sitting between the two of them called a we. And if you are blind to the we, you are blind to the couple. When a couple comes to me, I've got on them and this we between them. I never lose track of the we. And that's why, and now they've kind of figured that out in the last 10 years. Things have gotten to be extremely better. But for the longest while, you had a better chance of saving your marriage if you did nothing than if you went to see a couples therapist. That was the big joke in the field. So, because we weren't looking at it right.
So to clarify, when you said couples therapy, it used to be, it was 25% effectiveness?
18 to 25%.
18 to 25%.
That's right. And while most people reported 85% when they did one-on-one.
Effectiveness.
Yes.
Efficacy, okay.
That's a huge drop in satisfaction. 60 to 70%. It's because Carl Rogers said it's all about the self-actualized individual. Well, if you have two people trying to self-actualize themselves, you don't have a we, you have a war. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very clear. Just to go back for a moment, when you had the professor say that you have a 90% chance, what was he looking at? Like how did he determine that?
That was a few years ago. I just some test. But given my family background where there were so many divorces and things of that nature, and now I know why the statistic is there. You know, there wasn't a lot of right to love and be loved in my family. You know, it was safer pulling away from the relationship. What I didn't know is my brain had said, well, what would you rather be, close to her or be away? And when I was 7, I remember walking up to a hill at a party just to get away from them, thinking, I want to be away from these people. Some part of me said safety means being out of a family. So guess what it did really good for 2 marriages? It worked. It made me safe again. Let's get him out. Make sure he sabotages that. Oh, why did you say that thing? Why didn't you show up? Oh, some part trying to pull me out because at one time it was the best option. Would you want to be in a family with a borderline mother, or you want to be a little bit out on the curb a little ways? Curb looks really good, but not so much when you're married. That curb doesn't look so good when she says, wind up there. So that's what it is. It's just safety patterning.
Right, so can you be more specific about that? Because it's such a powerful distinction that you're making. So what I hear in what you say is that whatever gets developed, or the decisions we make, let's say it's 6, that early brain, development, that we unconsciously bring that into our future, even though on the outside, we think we're committed to being in a committed marriage, right? So can you talk more specifically how that plays out and what goes on in the brain?
Sure. Most of this is set up between 0 and 3. Attachment theory knows that there are some certain tests, it's called the strain situation. You can bring a child into a room, let them play with the children, a mom, and then take the mom out. And by the quality of their interaction when they return, you can tell how that child is wired for love, whether they are anxious, in which they can't be consoled, they don't believe mom is there, and so they get really angry, whether they're avoiding, they go, mom took off again, big deal, or they are secure. By 1 year old, you can track their love style. 1 year, and it will track the rest of their life. Now, between 0 and 3, your brain is being wired by love with 6, what I call templates, rights for experience. Now, the part that says I'm going to do better, I'm not going to be like my borderline mother, I'm going to have a great marriage, that's this part. Guess what? It comes on at 3. So these templates come in to this part of your brain back here. And if you don't get a full right to exist, you won't be present to your body or anybody else. If you don't have a full right to have your needs met, you'll find a taker because it's not safe reaching out. You have to have a full right to separate and belong. That means somebody's got your back. Someone's going to watch over you. A full right to create your experience, a full right to assert your truth, and a right to love and be loved. And then at age 3 come the beliefs. The beliefs comes online, this part comes online, gets myelinated, and it comes up with beliefs to explain what's already been put into the system. So if anybody has told you that the bottom line problem is a limiting belief, they are mistaken. The belief is secondary. It's the missing rights underneath. And so this part gets missing rights. This part says, well, screw that, I want something better, but this part's running.
So when you're pointing back here, just talk more about that, just
okay.
the brains.
This back here, you have a reptile part of your brain that's 350 million years old. And it's in what's called a paleo mammal brain, about 100 million years old. These two are combining to take in all of your experience and saying, what am I allowed? What's the permission list? Am I allowed to assert my truth? Am I allowed to be fully loved? And these
because we're looking for safety on the horizon, right? It's potential danger.
Mm-hmm.
Woolly mammoth might come and attack us. So it's that primal. I mean, it's that
it's
tribal primal.
Yes.
Goal. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm writing about. This is actually my theory on it, so it's kind of new. Is these templates they are templates for creating experience, and they get swapped out for other things like business and success. So
by swapped out, you mean it shows up then in the way you are in business and success, those
yes,
templates?
Yes, if somebody has a missing right to have their needs met, they will keep giving and giving and giving and giving. They tend to attract takers. In business, they'll be the same people that will never charge their value, or they're always giving away freebies. It's the same right. I worked with 3 7-figure coaches this year. All of them women, one was married, 2 were single. They all had the same problem of attracting someone who took more than they never had their back. When we swapped all that out, guess what they all found? Now, when you're 7 figures, you have a staff, right? They all made after a couple months, and they get their right back to really be properly supported. They all said, oh my God, my staff is the same thing as my boyfriend.
Right. They experienced being unsupported, and they were supporting the staff.
They all swapped out their staffs along with their boyfriends. It wasn't an accident. The right goes elsewhere. So that's why I say love is the operating system. Business, success, those are programs that run on top of the operating system.
Right. So can you talk more in real time how that actually happened? So you talked about the right from those early years being developed, kind of being the primary, the person in front, so to speak. Even though we don't know it.
Yes.
So what happened to transform that? What breakthrough occurred that swapped that out for, in your terms, a new right?
Okay. Like for instance, for me, when I was born, my mother was really looking for a girl. And I didn't know until I was 15 that I was dressed in pink for the first 6 months because that's all the clothes she bought. Now, I also found out from my Aunt Evelyn, who was constantly giving up secrets, that my mother didn't name me for 3 weeks. She was so disappointed, and the state of Ohio had to send the police officers to the home and said, ma'am, if you don't name the child, we are bringing you into jail. So Gary Cooper and Dean Martin came to mind. So,
oh, that's right.
that's a missing right.
Gary, Dean, Sandra. All right.
That's
okay.
right. So that's a missing right to exist, right? That's pretty good. You have to go back and work with that part of your brain and give it back a right to exist.
So how do you do that?
Well, there's something called re-imprinting in NLP, where you go back and you find those moments in time and you add resources. People think, well, I can't do that, but there are resources always available. They're always labeled unsafe, or for somebody else, or not me. But they're there, you access them, and you have to get the state in the room, and then you add resources. It has to be both body and mind.
So when you say resources,
Mhm.
can you say more about that?
Well, you find a time when they were fully accepted, and you bring that back in time. It's timeline work. It's like where you really get them find, when was the first time? You remember that. You bring up the memory, and you have to have the feelings, so when they are feeling that, oh my God, I'm going to be annihilated. I'm never, I don't have a right to be in my body. Then you can say so. Something like, so, can you imagine all the little ones when you were 2 years old in the world? And yeah, put them out there. Put a whole bunch of little ones, all the little ones in the world. How many of them don't have a right to be welcomed into the world? And everybody goes, well, they all do. Bring that back. It's that moment of, well, they all do. That's one way. That's one technique.
Which is a lot of energy when they say they all do, right?
Oh, yeah.
An emotional connection.
Yeah, and they go, who's going to say that to a little one? Everybody. Then you bring that back, and it literally tells the brain to create a different neural connection, so that they then begin to access that thing that was once off the map.
Mm. So
Yes.
you're talking about some pretty deep work here, yes?
It is.
And what do you do with those, clients that, or maybe not even clients yet, that just can't go there? Just can't go into that space.
Well, I have never had a client that showed up. If they don't want to go in that space, they don't sign up.
Right.
A soul has to be ready to do the work.
The soul has to be ready.
You really are about working with people's souls, and
Yes.
they have to be ready to expand. They have to get to the place with the pain, or they don't work, or they won't work with you.
Well, so do you believe in that, that bottom theory? You gotta hit bottom, or do you think someone can be kind of like in a mediocre relationship? It's okay, it's a little boring, not having a lot of intimacy, and want to go that deep to have something be extraordinary. Do you find that much?
I find people coming from a wide variety. I've had people come in absolute, utter desperation. And then there was the physician and his wife, he was a surgeon. And when they'd been married about 9 years, and about 5 or 6 years ago, they had their first child. Statistics say 67% of people have a significant drop in marital satisfaction. Well,
After their first child.
after the first child. And they said, we used to be 9s and 10s.
You mean on a scale of 1 to
Yes.
10, there
Yes.
were 9s and 10s in terms of satisfaction, and
Yes.
then that went down to what?
About a 5.
About a 5, and that's,
And they were afraid of where the chart was going.
yeah.
And then they said, we just want to have the love back. We want to know we're going to make it to we're 85. We're good, but we want to be great again. They weren't desperate. They just wanted extraordinary.
So how'd you do that?
Well, in this instance,
Inquiring minds want to know, Gary.
okay, in this instance, he came from a family where for 5 generations nobody ever had a divorce. So he was a very committed, and he loved her to death. But like so many men, did not have a full right to access his emotions or to really communicate. And what we found out with him, and she was dying for communication. When men and women are pairing off these days, and at one time, millions of years ago, women lived in communities where most of the time they were surrounded by other women. And there's all these emotions going back, and then you say, let's put you in a single house, separate you from your women, and have a man who's been taken away from his emotions, and he gets to be your feminine entertainment connection. And a man's first reaction is when you say, how are you feeling? It's like, what's the score of that game again now? So we gave him back a right to really communicate. And I can still remember I said, no, why don't you go? And we worked on it. Everybody in his family was very stoic, like Spock. And he said,
Did you say like Spock?
Like Spock.
Dr. Spock,
Yes.
Star Trek?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so we just said, what if you could play guilty by the family rules? What if you could really speak? And we gave that, and I said, I want you to go and just tell your wife, ask her how she's feeling, and tell her how you're feeling. And we worked about 15 minutes on what he was feeling, but we accessed what he was feeling. And it was so cool. She calls me up the next day and says, what did you do with my husband? She goes, somebody walked out of that session with you and asked me about my feelings, and that's never happened. I want to know what you did with him. You know, that's it. We just gave him back permission that was not there in his family.
To feel.
Yes. Nobody had feelings. They were all happily, just committedly married. But that game doesn't work today because women need access to a man's feelings or they won't trust him. They won't.
That's the truth.
That's the truth.
I'll take that one on myself. Yes, absolutely.
What do you sort for when you want to trust a woman? How are you feeling today? How are you feeling?
Yes.
You know, when a man goes, well, what's that? You know, and it's taken a while for me to be comfortable with this as a man. I have no problems with feelings, but it wasn't always that way.
Or as a woman, I know that I've adopted, so what are you thinking about? I know it drives my husband crazy, but
Yeah.
I won't ask him what he's feeling. I'm like, well, what are you thinking about? Because I can get that one over the line.
Yeah, you can get that one over the line. That's right. Yeah, thinking is good.
Yeah.
But feeling is like, because at one time, if we're out looking for the saber, you know, let's say we're
Danger,
going the
right.
wildebeest, right? You don't want to have your feelings. The scared man is the dead man. That's the way it works. So, but that's not where we're at. That's like old programming. And the we only comes when there's really a permission for a man to access his feelings, to access his feelings for her. And that takes a little work.
So can you talk more about this week? Because
Mhm.
there's a lot I know that's rich around this distinction. So can you kind of flesh it out more?
Yeah. You know what it's like when you have oxygen, right? And you have hydrogen, right? But when you put the two together, you have water. It's a different animal. It reacts differently. The we that is generated between two people is always the summation of what rights they have to create experience.
From that 0 to 6.
Yeah. Every time I work with a couple, I'm looking for how one chose the other for the exact set of missing rights that's driving them crazy because it wasn't safe. They would, if they don't have a right to their needs, they'll find a man who will be more of a taker, and then they'll resent him for it. He, on the other hand, may not have had a full right to create his experience, and so her way of compensating for not having her needs met is to try to take control and to create an experience in which it gives him a very same hit of his missing right. And you have to watch what I call them dueling missing rights. When a couple can realize that their dynamics are that creation that they chose each other because that was at one time the best deal available, and they can say, thank you, I married the person I was safe with. Now can we choose more?
Right, so is that along the same lines as the theory you actually attract a person who is supposed to provide you, grant you with the biggest healing? I mean, in the long run
Oh yeah.
of the journey?
There's no other way.
And
Yes.
if you don't create that healing, then that's when it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's exactly what you do in your own coaching all the time. It's an inner game thing. It's totally inner game. So this is why if you work just on communication skills, what if I gave the doctor who didn't have a right to communicate better set of communication skills? Would he exercise it?
Right, like it goes back to strategy. A strategy
Yeah.
involved, say this, when she walks in the room, do this.
He didn't have the right. He didn't have the right. Yet we have to give people back the right to an experience before we can ever coach them. This is where a lot of marital coaching just falls flat. They're trying to coach people before they give them back the right to have a better experience. You have to have the right. So if I gave you tickets to have a cruise line in Norway, okay? So what I gave you and Marcus.
Have a cruise line or be on?
Be on a cruise
Yeah,
line. Be on a cruise line. But neither of you had passports. How would you go?
We wouldn't.
You wouldn't. You got to give people the passport to the experience. Then you can give them the cruise line. That's the deal.
I want to go back to go forward for a moment, and then I want to open up for some questions and answers. Why did you, because I know that you were a real academic,
Mm-hmm.
I know you personally. So what had you switch from being a doctor, sailor in that whole world to, really one-on-one coaching that empowers, or,
Yes.
one-on-two marriage coaching?
Well, there was the graduate professor, and I didn't, and one day I realized I wasn't happy. And I didn't know why I wasn't happy. I had the book, I had the monographs, I had the publications, my students loved me. And I wasn't happy. And then one day, a 30-year-old graduate student, her name was Leah, she was pregnant, she was also head of marketing at Charles Schwab. And she writes me an email. And I swear to God, it only said this: "Dear Dr. Sauer, what's a brilliant man like you teaching to only 10 to 12 students at a time? If you ever want to play a bigger game of life, give me a ring."
Now that's the universe giving you a message.
And she spoke my truth. I realized I didn't want to speak to just 10 to 12 people. I had my speech teacher in college had once subbed in for a guy by the name of Martin Luther King. I always dreamed of making a big change, and I was not going to do it with a book with another 993 footnotes. Not that I would ever write a book with 993 footnotes, but I did. Yes. And I realized this wasn't what I came to do. And when I stepped into it, I went back to that 22-year-old and I said, it was right after the divorce, and I said, "This is where I need to go. I came for this reason, not the other reason. I made a mistake." And I said, "We're going to crack the code. That's why I came here." It was a soul-level moment of recognition. This is why I came. Sort of like what Oprah said. It's that souls come for reason. Until you know that, you're not on track.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you're on a journey trying to get on that track.
And that's why I love your work, because what you're doing is helping people get in touch with that primary direction they were supposed to be going, and life tends to get us off into the woods, off the beaten track. There's a super highway of purpose, and that's what I like about your work, is that's what you're doing.
Well, even to layer into what your work is, it would be that you would get off the track because of this, as you said, in the back of your brain, or the lower brainstem and the midbrain, being more in control. Or I've heard you say before, it's your 6-year-old running your life, or your 6-year-old trying to handle an adult's life, or an adult's relationship.
Yes, that's right. Yes, and a 5-year-old does many things wonderful, but not run an adult relationship. By the way, whenever you get into a fight with your beloved, you're somewhere between 2 and 5. And what I always ask, if someone gets 2 in their hand, I go, "So how would a 5-year-old say that?" "I don't belong." Bingo. That's the pain. The pain is always what the 5-year-old would say. If somebody's giving you, and they get, "I'm not quite sure my vibration is reflected well," that's not going to cut it. That's not the place when they say, "Oh my God, I've never belonged, and it hurts so bad." Then you have to stay in the room. That's when you can swap it out.
That's great. So before we open it up, I just want to know the legacy that you want to leave behind, and how do you want to be remembered for your work on the planet?
Oh, I have a personal message statement. I want to change a generation's fate with love. That's what I want to do. I mean, we have a generation which 50% divorce rate. And if you want to talk about all the people who are divorced and never filed the papers, it's 65%. This is an epidemic.
You mean divorce as in they're not really an intimate,
yes,
close relationship, they're just two bodies together.
That's right. And 50% of the population are not wired for secure love. They're either wired to be avoidant, where they don't want to commit, they don't want to have a lot of closeness, or they're anxious. "Oh my God, where were you last night?" Now, 50% is less than our birthright. And that's why in my book, the second chapter is a generation without a GPS for love. We don't know. And so what a secure relationship feels like, because many of us didn't have one. It's taken me a few years to figure out what that means. And what I want to do is let everybody know that love is their birthright. It's your birthright. You know, you stepped into a body that was expecting, as a soul, to be interacted with love, to be cherished, to be protected and welcomed. And by the way, there are just 4 feelings that tell your brain when you are securely loved. You've been running them since when? This is your GPS. Am I welcomed with joy? Am I worthy? Do I feel worthy and nourished to have my needs met? Am I cherished and protected? And am I empowered with choice? You have all 4, you feel really great about a relationship. 3, and you're thinking, we've got a few things to work on. If you're missing 3 or 4, it's a toxic relationship. Those are the only 4 things your brain needs to feel, and that's its GPS. That's its east, west, north, and south. Most people don't know that, and it comes from 0 to 3.
And so the 4 again are empowered. I know you have no sense, but the emotions feel empowered, cherished,
worthy,
and
welcome. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome with joy. Oh, so glad to see you. Yeah. Or if you were a little one, oh, I do want to keep one. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what how many mothers ever walked up and go, oh, you're a little kid. That's welcomed with joy. Yes. Yeah.
Do you want to use examples of the other 3? Give us examples.
Okay, well, worthy so, you know, that's where you say, you know, will we really notice and make detailed love maps? You know, knowing that, well, they like a half beef, you know, with vanilla, but you also know, you know, what their really deep heart needs are. Cherished and protected is really where you allow them to have their experience, but you've also got their back, and you're there to protect them. You're there to really make sure their dreams happen. And empowered with choices of that. Most men make a huge mistake. 82% of men who won't share influence, there's a technical term in the attachment theory, it's called divorcees. We have to be able to empower each other. And sometimes men do that little testosterone thing because we're so afraid of losing power, because we don't feel really powerful within ourselves. If you truly feel your own power, you can stand next to a woman in her power and it doesn't faze you any. It just doesn't. You know, and you can give each other that energy. So these are the ways, and there's certain skill sets that go along with that to help you, you know. You feel that, you know, what's your dreams? Ask, and for most women, if a man comes home that's been married to you and says, honey, what's your dreams? They're going to fall off the chair. You know, they're waiting for that. And we have to empower men to empower their women. Because it's not working. Women deserve to be empowered. Their souls just came in, and all they said was, well, you know, there's 2 choices of incarnations. One that has a dual processor emotional brain, and one that only has a 1 processor. If you're 1 processor, you're a man. If 2, if you want more feelings, you go to a woman's body. We need each other, you know.
That's really great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say 1 or 2 words, and I'm just going to ask you to finish the sentence. Okay. It's a little impromptu.
Ooh.
So you are.
I am a soul with deep purpose.
The soul is.
The soul is the part of you that always knows who it is.
Love is.
Love is our highest calling. And it's about making each other their greatest self.
Truth is.
Truth is, I would say, truth is that feeling that you have in the depths of your being when you are aligned with a higher purpose. And usually that's love. It's never negative. You know, so it's always a truth. When you feel a truth, you can feel it right here, and it's clear, and it's always about something higher. Not,
yeah.
It is.
I call that attunement.
And everybody has a different form of it. I can't, you know, so I'm not doing content. But when you feel truth, it's like, oh my God, how else could it have been? And it feels expansive. It feels like it's pulling you. And it feels, yeah, how else could it be? That's where we're supposed to be, on that level. And nothing else will ever look the same when you looked at truth. whatever that is for you.
Relationships are?
Relationships are the thing that makes us all work.
Extraordinary relationships and marriages are?
Extraordinary relationships are when you have a soulmate relationship and you bring out the absolute best in each other. In a soulmate relationship, the contract isn't, did I screw up today? The contract is anything less than bringing out your best in the other is a violation of the contract. So if you have a soulmate contract, it's not enough did I do good. It's did I bring out her or his greatness today. That's a soulmate. That's extraordinary. When your eyes are looking at that level, it changes the nature of a relationship.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I wanted to open it up to questions and answers. Does anybody in the room have a question? I might, Holly, if you just help with the mic. We would bring the mic over to you. Don't be bashful, shy.
No, we
You
don't
might have a
bite.
breakthrough.
I don't need my.
We need it for the camera.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Springfield, Ohio. Yeah.
And then this love that you're talking about, that we all deserve,
Mm-hmm.
what, is it universal? I mean, is it specific to a relationship? You know, man and woman, or
Okay.
woman, man.
We come out of the womb with wiring that's innately geared to expect loving relationships. It comes from our mammal brain. If we were just a reptile brain, reptile brains don't need a bond. You know, believe it or not, when a female turtle is giving out 10,000 children on the beach, she will sometimes eat them. Now, it's a foregone conclusion that when females who are human have children, they don't think snack time. They're not. We come out needing a bond. And if we don't get that bond, our brain will literally turn off neurons for connection. So if you ever wonder why someone has maybe an avoidant, because the brain didn't get the interactions that told it to turn those relationship neurons on. Now they can be turned back on. So we can't be our fullest human self without a deeply loving relationship. Should start with parents, but it needs to continue because our brains are constantly pinging each other for relationships. And when we don't get enough pings, we feel lonely. We don't feel empowered. And it does nothing good for our incarnations.
Holly?
Thank you. I have to admit, I'm one of the people that you were describing throughout your talk about having attracted somebody who I can do a lot for and then they can avoid and then I can chase and that whole cycle. And so now 20 years into a marriage, recognizing what my role is, how I want to repattern that, and recognizing that there's a we in between the two of us, what can I or somebody else do in a marriage if they are ready for that change and it looks as though the other person isn't ready? Or I guess what I'm asking Dr. Gary is how can I control the situation yet one more time to get him to change when I want him to because it's time now.
Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you. That I've seen that before, and it is really, and it's painful. I know that.
Well, because the alternative then is to wait and to settle and persevere, or to divorce. So there doesn't seem to be any good solution.
Yeah.
Nagging no longer works, controlling it and getting resentful doesn't work. So what do you do next?
You have to invite with really clear language. Honey, I'm lonely. I really do need a deeper connection. And I would like to invite you. I just want the greatest connection with you. I want to know what's the greatest thing that you need, and I need you to know that. And we haven't had that. and I would like to, and you can just say it. Would you come and work? Because you're going to need a mentor to do that. You're going to need somebody to be the go-between. And so you have the right to assert your truth, not to do it in a belligerent way, but to do it in a kind way, saying, "Honey, we're 20 years out, and I would love, and I need more." Or this is what I need. Maybe more might trigger him, right? But there's a way to say it, in which you simply invite them to say, what I need is this. And you have the right, that's the right to assert. It's the right to your needs. You have the right to say that. Because your incarnation isn't going to be its fullest until you step into that. And neither will his. He's depriving himself of a relationship with an incredible woman by not giving you the connection. If my men only knew what women who get their emotional connections turn into, they would love emotions for the rest of their life.
Very true.
But he's missing some rights too. Yeah. So it's about inviting him too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love what you just said about not only are we not being our highest selves in the relationship in that instance, but we're actually limiting them from being their highest selves by staying in the hamster wheel of the needs not getting met. I thought that was really profound.
Oh, yes.
Patty?
Can people experience the we fully if one of you is suffering from something, say your childhood, that you haven't healed from?
Nobody has totally healed a childhood. And it's not about perfection. It's about just being human and realizing that you have the right to grow. And and just a little bit of a change can make huge changes. And it's also possible that there could be more access to resources too. I'm not completely healed from everything, but I'm pretty good with all that stuff back there. Give yourself permission to just make small steps. Remember the whole movie? What was the movie about Contact? Remember?
With Jodie Foster.
With Jodie Foster, small steps. Small steps. So you don't need to swap out everything from your childhood. You just need to give yourself a few more access doors. Just open the door a little bit, and it's like when you open a door. If we open that up, you could imagine how much breeze could come through just a little crack, right? Have you ever had a draft in a house? It's the same way, and you can still have those resources, and then it just opens a little more and a little more. So yeah, you can. You don't have to be perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a missing right to create your experience, by the way. When we have to be perfect, that's someone saying, I can't be a full human being. And experience is both good and bad, weak and strong, dark side and light side, and that's what we all got. Except for me, of course.
Maybe. So we can take one more question. We're going to go a little over, so I appreciate you being able to. Lisa?
Do you have the specific blueprint to do this groundwork that you're talking about, or you're right?
Yes, I do. Now, I just happen to have, there's 3 handouts. Graduate professor, right? This is part of me that just doesn't know how to turn it on. But I'm actually going to, so you can, everybody's got 3 handouts. And on the one it says, the rights for love. And then the other one has a rights for success. It's called Safe to Succeed. And where I show how these same love templates turn into success templates. So in the handouts, there's one that's all about the 4 feelings, what it takes to know when you're really loved by your sweetie. Those are those 4 feelings that I talked about, your GPS. So in the handouts, there's 3 of them. It's all about the journey. There's one page all about what is a real journey to secure love. Then you got a couple pages on these rights, and then the 4 feelings. That should get you. Those are the inner templates. That's the guts of my book. that I'm writing, and
What's the name of the book again?
Safe to Love Again.
And when will that be out?
Should be out probably next year. I'm going to finish writing it in the next 2 months. Then, of course, there's the whole thing. What I offer people usually is if somebody really wants to know what their inner map, their love rights, which ones are missing out, I have a $97 love map session where I listen in, we talk for about an hour, and I can tell you where those missing templates are in your life and what they're doing and what you can do about them. So that's what I do. It's all about finding how your brain, the rules your brain is using to create love or not. So that's what I do. And so you have the templates, but you can also work with me too. We have that 1 hour session and we'll get you clear on whether it's a missing right to your needs or a right to separate and belong, and you'll say, oh my God, that's what's going on in my relationship. Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you to Gary on many levels. I've done work with you. As I said in the beginning of my talk today, I had 30 years, over 250,000, like a PhD times 3 invested in my own journey, my own work, my own transformation. And my work with Gary, I literally feel like my brain has changed in my marriage. Like I just don't say the same thing. You know how you find yourself saying the same things over and over again, expect a different result from your beloved? It's like I don't say that stuff anymore. So my brain has really changed, and that's, from the heart. I really acknowledge who you are in the world and your stand.
Now you're making me cry. This is why I do the work. For souls like her and Mark, who are great souls, and who just wanted more love between them. This is what a secure love style feels like on the inside. And now that they both got one, their marriage is much better. And that's why I do it, because your children and their children will be different. You and I will be looking down from heaven one day and noticing all the changes that happened. And that's why we do what we do.
And it's interesting because thank you, I can acknowledge that paradigm that you talked about with 2 self-actualized people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't about that. Both of us are very self-actualized, have done a lot of work, but it was the we that you attended to, that we just didn't have the skills. I mean, when you don't know what you don't know, we didn't know what we didn't know. We were just trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And it had nothing to do with my own everything to do with my own journey. It just didn't have anything to do with my own self-development.
Yes.
So it's we development, I would call it. What you do is we development.
It is we development. I talk about in relationships, there's a meality, there's a thee-ality, and then of course there's reality, but there's also we-ality. And when 2 people are doing mealities, not so good. We-ality. Yeah, reality.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
So Gary's going to stick around if you guys, you beautiful yous, have any questions for him directly or want to find out more about his work. I just want to make a few announcements. Yes, Holly? Should we just clap and acknowledge Gary?
And thank you for showing up today. Your soul had a reason for being here.
Thank you.
Yes.